Okay, so when you think of Paris, what comes to mind? The Eiffel Tower, right? The Louvre, maybe? And almost certainly this place, the Sacré-Cœur Basilica. It just looks so serene, so peaceful. But what if I told you that its beautiful white domes were built on a foundation of civil war, revolution, and, well, revenge?
I mean, just look at it. It sits on top of Montmartre. That's the highest point in Paris, like this gleaming white crown. It almost seems to float above the city. You can see it from just about anywhere, this incredible symbol of peace and faith. And yeah, people love it. It's one of the most visited monuments in the entire city, pulling in over 10 million visitors every single year. For most of us, it's a holy place, a must-see tourist spot, a perfect picture for Instagram. But here's the thing. There's a whole other story here, one that you're probably not going to find in your typical guidebook. It's a story that takes this beautiful landmark and turns it into something way more complicated. So let's get into it. All right, so the story of the Sacré-Cœur doesn't start with peace. Not even close. It actually begins in one of the most traumatic, most chaotic periods in all of French history. We have to rewind all the way back to the 1870s. So let's break down this timeline, because it's really important. In 1870, France gets absolutely crushed by Prussia in a war. Chaos erupts. Then, in March of 1871, a revolutionary socialist government called the Paris Commune takes over the city. But it doesn't last. Just 72 days later, it gets brutally put down by the French army during what's now known as the Bloody Week. And then, get this, only 2 years after all that bloodshed, the government officially approves the construction of the Sacré-Cœur. That timing, it's everything. And this is where you see the deep, deep contradiction. On the one hand, you have this serene, beautiful basilica, but on the other, you have the brutal reality of what happened right before it was built. We're talking thousands of Parisians, these communards, being executed by their own government. That violent, bloody history is literally buried in the foundations of this monument that looks so peaceful. So the big question is, why? Why build it? Well, the official reason tells you everything you need to know about its real purpose. This was never just about faith. It was all about power. And they weren't exactly hiding it. The official decree from the National Assembly in 1873 spells it out plain as day. It says the basilica was built, quote, to expiate the crimes of the commune. Now, expiate, that's a heavy word. It means to atone for guilt. So this wasn't some subtle message. It was a massive, public act of forcing Paris to repent for its rebellion. But what were these so-called crimes they were atoning for? Well, the Commune was a shockingly progressive and secular government, especially for its time. They were pushing for radical ideas like the separation of church and state, rights for workers, and get this, even the right for women to vote, decades before almost anyone else in Europe was even talking about it. For the conservative powers that be, these weren't just political disagreements. They were deep moral sins that had to be washed away. And that's what the Sacré-Cœur became. It was designed as this giant triumphal monument to a new moral order. It was a way of reasserting conservative Catholic authority over a city that had dared to be rebellious and secular. It was a message sent in stone. And that message wasn't just in its reason for being. It was literally baked into the architecture itself. I mean, from its overall style, right down to the specific type of stone they used. Think about the design. The architect didn't go with the typical Parisian style of the time, that elegant, uniform Haussmann look. No, he chose a Romano-Byzantine style with these huge, imposing domes that almost feel foreign. And that was totally intentional. It was designed to look like it didn't belong, to stand out and loom over the very city it was meant to keep in line. And then there's the stone itself. This is wild. It's a special kind of travertine that has this amazing property. When it rains, it releases calcite, which naturally bleaches the stone. It literally self-cleans and gets whiter over time. So the basilica is designed to stay perpetually, immaculately white, a perfect symbol of purity and moral cleansing. And once you get inside, the political statement just gets louder. Check out the massive apse mosaic. It's the biggest one in all of France. And it's not just pretty art. It's basically a political manifesto. It shows Jesus being glorified by the Catholic Church with figures like Joan of Arc there. And the inscription, it totally seals the deal. It dedicates the church from a fervent, penitent, and grateful France. It's the nation visually on its knees, repenting for its revolutionary sins. Which, of course, brings us to today. Because this history, it's not ancient history.
it's not settled. The basilica's controversial origins are still a source of debate and division in modern Paris.
You see, the Sacré-Cœur really lives a double life. For millions, it's a sacred site of perpetual prayer. In fact, Eucharistic adoration has been going on there, uninterrupted, 24/7 since 1885. But for others, it's been called an incessant provocation to civil war, a monument that shames the city's rebellious spirit, built on the exact spot where the Commune's uprising first began. And you can see this double meaning in all of its most famous features. You or I might climb the dome for that incredible 360-degree view of Paris, but from a historical view, it's a watchtower of moral authority, surveying the city. That jaw-dropping mosaic? Yeah, it's a masterpiece of religious art, but it's also a declaration of a conservative victory. And La Savoyarde, that massive 19-ton bell, the biggest in France, it's either an amazing piece of engineering or a constant tolling reminder of national pennant. The symbolism is just everywhere. Even the official address is dripping with meaning. The basilica is on the Rue du Chevalier de la Barre. And who was he? Oh, just the last man ever executed for blasphemy in France. It's such a specific, pointed choice that hammers home that theme of religious authority.
But here, right here, is the ultimate symbol of this whole contested story. At the very foot of the basilica is a park, the Square Louise Michel, and it's named for one of the great heroes of the Paris Commune, a feminist, an anarchist, a true revolutionary. So you have this monument to order, forever staring down at a park dedicated to the very rebellion it was built to crush. It's Paris in a nutshell.
So, it all leaves you with this one big question, right? When we stand in front of a monument, any monument, what do we actually see? Do we just see its beauty, its artistry? Or do we see the history it was built to tell, the story it was designed to celebrate or condemn? It's a question worth asking for sure, not just in Paris, but everywhere we go.